So here we are. I am Diana Tedoldi, and I'm here at Greenland campus Henley Business School on the River Thames. And yesterday took place right here the first ever Coaching Outdoors Festival live in-person meeting of all the people, all the coaches interested in getting to know more about coaching with nature outdoors. And it's been just a fantastic experience, organized by the co-founder and co-creator of the Coaching Outdoors podcast, Anna Marie Watson.
Hi there.
And I'm still here with my colleagues James Farrell and Toby Cowern. And now we are going to share with you how was it for us to join such a magnificent experience and sharing and what we see ahead of us. So welcome you all. It's a pleasure to have the chance to share with you in person and record this conversation. And Anna Marie, what did you most appreciate in yesterday? And I know a lot of commitment for you and your team over the past months or over the past year, maybe, was so, engaging. And so what would you like to share? How did it come true? And anything you want to say?
Thank you, Diana. And it is such a pleasure to be here with James and Toby. We've had this really special little enclave following on from yesterday, which is amazing space to kind of pause and breathe and land a little. So, part of your question, what did I appreciate so much about yesterday? Oh, in one word, the people. Like, wow, what an amazing group of people. Just struggling to find the words, to be honest. And being able to have created this event as a part of an amazing team. And there has been so much work behind the scenes, like anybody involved in event management will know. The devil is in the detail, and it has been hours upon hours upon hours, whether that has been the Coaching Outdoors podcast team or whether it's been the Henley podcast team. It's been a true collaboration. And I know that when Paul and myself were talking about the event, we were really keen to have at the heart of it community, connection and collaboration, the 3 C's. And I really feel that we met that yesterday. And from having conversations with people and overhearing other conversations, been able to wander around the grounds and see all of the workshop facilitators working their magic, that just really came across. So yeah, an incredibly special day. I will definitely treasure the memories of it for the rest of my life. And I really feel that it is a turning point. It is the next step. Okay, it's the end of the first edition and it is the beginning of what to come. And fingers crossed, we've got edition 2 next year, and watch this space for further information coming through. And it is also, what is each and every person taking away? What are they taking? What are their threads? What are their nuggets? How has it inspired them to maybe ignite a project that they've maybe had a little fledgling idea about and start to bring that to life? Or maybe it has really reinvigorated them to actually move forwards. And there were several conversations I had with people that how this event has really validated what they do, and it has really given them just more confidence and more courage to keep moving forwards. It can be almost a lonely place. We're still on the fringes, we're still the outliers doing something different. And I always come back to this piece around together we are so much more than an individual. The sum is greater than the parts. And I'm really curious to see where this could go. There were some amazing initiatives in fruition, and let's see what the future holds.
Some reflections for me. Thanks for those, and I agree with everything you've said. And I think we should all give you some props, and you and Alex and Jonathan and Paul and the energy that you've put in, it does feel like this is the start of a new movement. I don't think it's a tipping point yet, but I do think we can get there. I got woken up at about 5 by a song thrush this morning, singing outside my window, which seemed very appropriate. And so I couldn't go back to sleep. I came out here quite early, and it was quiet and still, but there was almost like an echo of yesterday's energy here still. There were still, some footprints and places where you could see people had been sitting during the day, and it was quite powerful actually, just being here and remembering the energy from yesterday, all the conversations that we had with each other, but also, with all the participants. And I think the overall sense I was left with was just like the amount of hunger for and the interest for those people working in this space, and the diversity of approach with guide dogs all the way through, taking people over mountains and working in wilderness as well as the centre of London. So huge diversity of approaches, and really the start of something exciting. So yeah, it's been a privilege to be here. Toby?
Yeah, thank you. I guess I was very fortunate that the administrative side didn't touch me that much. There was like very light interaction planning process, so I kind of really held kind of cold and just got the day for what it was, as opposed to this like huge workload prior to it, with the anticipation, the projection, the kind of the stress and the worry. So I just got to enjoy the whole thing, right from the kind of the early anticipation on the day. What was really interesting, the key takeaway for me, to put it simply, as a seminal event, you think or you hope that there's this kind of big pond of coaching, and we're going to throw a little pebble of the outdoors in there, because that's how great things start. As it was, I think it was less seminal and more seismic. I think we threw a big old boulder, and it made a big splash. And that wasn't my perception. That was just reading and listening to people in the room. There's just such energy behind this. I think once it's got a direction to go, it's going to go mad. And it is already. And we saw that on the socials. So I think, this is the crack in the dam that's going to to the flood. The credit should be given, because that's down to the planning. Quite simply, the crafting and the creative day, and then the execution allowed the energy to come to fruition, but also to get forward in focus. And I'm just really excited to see that wave and hopefully be part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, also I'd like to say that yesterday felt like the perfect landing of all the work you did with the Coaching Outdoors podcast, which was all in, and created lots of awareness of the many different ways to approach coaching and nature. So it was like, hey, and it was strong in my head. Something yesterday happened, like were interlocking when I finally know you in person after so many years looking and sharing in the screen, and you as well, and all the other people beside you, because I already met you in person in Prague 2019. So you were the only one actually there. I had only met in person previously. All the others, people that I came to know because of the internet and online and your work, something that this is really the and it was much. I think that our brain, our system needs in-person connection, because it just makes everything so much real. And I'm the embodied girl around, so of course I love embodied things like an in-person experience. So this was one of the real values that I got from this. And also noticing, like you said, all the biodiversity of approaches to coaching with nature. And I also want to mention what I perceived as the collaboration of the place and the magnificent of many so old trees, hundreds of years old. So that was uplifting in many ways for both the facilitators. How many were we? Like 8 facilitators, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10.
Yeah, the fact that it was a sell-out event. I'll just say that again. Saying it. The fact that it was like a sell-out event was just like beyond what we thought. We had no idea how this was going to land 8 months ago. It was true in the fact that Henley Business School boulder and just gave us a really, really long leash and took care of so much, and just let us go. Like talking to Daniel, like he didn't know what we were going to be doing minute block. They just trusted us to go with it. He's like, well, you're the experts, just do what you do, which is amazing.
And I'd like to ask your perspective on what's next now. What do you envision? Yesterday for the closing, you were asking this question like, okay, let's figure out where are we going to be in 10 or what comes to mind with this outlook?
I don't know. What does it hold? It's down to everybody who came. Like, what is their passion? What's their motivation, and how gonna bring their why to life? So that's an unknown, and that's what I find exciting. I can postulate and have a big picture vision and hope, and often the reality is more exciting. It's our conscious brain can only envisage so much, and actually it's what lies beyond that, which is that's the beauty in it. You can find out to plan. Life would be a little bit boring and kind of cognitive, and let's just open it up. And I will cover that as well, because there are and both. With the podcast, we're established. We've been going for 3.5 years. Let's keep that rolling. Let's really tap into network, discover more amazing guests. And I think that's what will come from tomorrow. We put the plea out, signpost your guests. Who do you want to see featured? So I'm really excited about receiving suggestions and shaping where to go from that. Yes, second edition of Coaching Outdoors Live. We were ambitious. We're being ambitious. You guys didn't have much space to deliver, and is the scope to program pretty much. People could come and do different workshops, and there was a demand for that. And there's a whole load of wealth and wisdom of facilitators out there. How do we draw other people in and mix it up? Do we extend it? Do we have a 1.5-day event? Do we have a 2-day event? Do we have it so that there is an evening, so that there's more space for side conversations? And I'd love to be able to facilitate that a bit more. And then taking it wider. The research and the academic world is not my world, and I'm the first to admit that. I will leave that firmly to Jonathan and Alex and anyone else who has that interest. Where will they go with it? I do think it's interesting. We have a gold mine of data from the podcast. We have all the recordings, we have all the themes, a load of quotes, and now thanks to AI we have transcripts, which is huge. So actually, what from a meta-analysis perspective, like what are the themes, what are the trends within that? And I'm not the person to do that data crunching, so if that appeals, do reach out. And then well, what other avenues are there to share, to connect, to learn together? And whether that is through the Coaching Outdoors podcast. Is there a branch of Coaching Outdoors? And I appreciate the Coaching Outdoors, that in itself as a title, is it entirely appropriate? I no, and it's what it is. It's a huge umbrella which is scooping up the diversity that we've all mentioned. So is the opportunity for more webinars to bring some of your previous guests back, and to really tap into your expertise more, and to have maybe smaller, more kind of intimate conversations and breakouts, and then what about more resources, more literature, more support, more tools? And I know that several of you were writing in various stages of publication, so let's have a bit more books that we can talk about. It would be great to offer more variety within that space. So there's a lot. There's a lot. We are this is the starting point. We're kind of, I don't know, even on the starting line. I'm going to have to bring an ultra metaphor in. Sorry, I can't not. I managed to get it into my conversation yesterday. Anyone who knows me knows that coaching and running are my two passions in life. So are we even at the start line? Are we actually still maybe doing the training and working out our kit and working out what we're actually doing? And we're going to start line, then the start line probably changes. The route get diverted, but it's the beauty of life.
Thank you. Look forward. Yeah, it can get messy and complicated, so I try to simplify it. I think I think how you set off was absolutely critical with the 3 C's. So looking at that connection, collaboration, and communication, that is the way. There's, as we discussed at length, I think a lot of people doing very similar, if not identical things, but using different words. I think commonality in verbiage is one of the first steps, that communication part. What do we call what things? What are we referring to? Because a lot of this is individual people's minds in different bioregions, different areas. That and getting a commonality is essential, because that then gives that foundation because it allows for clear communication, clarity, and lack of confusion. And then moving forward is that segregation and symbiosis of the emerging technology of AI along with the coaching outdoor space. And I really loved that question was asked yesterday very directly. And it was answered so comprehensively by Jonathan, that these are not competing things. They can absolutely be complementary if managed right. And I think that's an important part. AI is disruptive and is game changing as technology is, but the outdoor coaching can easily absorb and work around that. And we need to. So I think those are the immediate pressing concerns, and how those are handled shapes the next 5 years. Got to look at the short term and address the operational before we get too much into strategic, because one will build and grow from the other.
And I think you've got 70 hours of recordings, which, and it's often individually fast. And I think there's an urgency. I feel it anyway. I think there's an urgency to this work. We are living in multiple emergencies: nature, climate, health, social justice. And I do think this work has a critical role to play, actually, in addressing and helping to change behaviours, minds, and attitudes. So I think, how can we harness the convening power that you've got in events like this, but almost beyond events, into thinking about influencing? So actually, I do think there's some strategy personally. I do think we could be making perhaps some choices, some of us who might want to come together and say, push the same boulder rather than in small rocks. Celebrate the small rocks too. I think more than one big boulder, Toby. You could probably have a whole bunch, really, to create some ways for the change to meet the change that sort of matches the urgency of what we're seeing in the world, I think. So that's my reflection. I don't know how exactly, but I'm sure there's willingness, and I know that there's willingness from a lot of us to maybe put some heads together and think about that. I also think, I hope that in future, in 10 years, I hope that this movement will succeed where some other aspects of coaching have failed, and become democratic and inclusive, and really represent the societies that we serve. And at the moment, I don't think we do. So I do think that's a challenge for us all to think about that. Where do we have events? This is wonderful, but maybe if we have events in other, we might be able to draw in a different cross section of coaches and people who experience, perhaps working in other ways. And my final point is, that is one of the beauties of coaching, the way it's multidisciplinary in its nature, isn't it? It draws on lots of things. And if we took a step back and think about where does that multiplicity draw on other disciplines, I think we could be joining up with ecotherapy, we could be joining up with mental health workers, we could be joining up with the climate coaching movement even more in future, and not in the people's front situation, maybe is what. So I hope that doesn't feel like that's negative in any way or judgmental. It isn't meant to be, but I do think this is a wonderful movement, and can go so much further if we can think in that kind of way. Do you have any thoughts?
Of course I do. Yes. So I like a lot the 10 years ahead. What do you see? Question. For me, it's like, since it was so empowering yesterday, and also I noticed that what most people who were attending were really looking for, okay, let's see, Coaching Outdoors. How does it work? What does it do? What does he do? What do you, all people, other coaches do? And so it was about inspiring knowledge also, curiosity, and also, yes. So I think that what our colleagues are looking for is, like you said before, like validating that this is okay, this is in the realm, in the wider society. And so for that empowerment, okay, I like have a dream of like co-creating an association or more training all together, where we can have a taste of all the different approaches, more literature, of course, but not just that, because then the fruition of the literature is individual. So what can be more socialized and bring people together to learn together, to advance together. And also the climate piece for me is relevant. If I look ahead, and it will be 2034, 2035, we will have passed our chance, because researchers say that 20 should have defined the policies to prevent exceed 1.5 degrees increase in atmosphere temperatures. So we will be far beyond that point. The necessary policies must have been defined. And so I'm wondering, how will the world look like? So how can we prepare ourselves as coaches in a democratic perspective, so amplifying our impact for any person, not just in the corporate world where most of my coaching, for example, happens, but also for any people who may need coaching as a tool to address the challenges that I think or I fear we may have in 10 years from now. The exacerbation of the climate emergency. So a synergy between the Climate Coaching Alliance, I'm a part of that as well, and the other major organizations, and how we include nature perspectives. For example, ICF core coaching competencies. Why isn't nature even mentioned there? While the ICF and other major coaching organizations have signed the joint global statement on climate change, why isn't that mentioned as a foundational competence for any coach to know something about nature and her needs, her requests to us, and really like turn from the inside out the perspective we have on nature as a place to go, from a partner, include in not only in coaching conversations but in our lives, and look at any decision that we are called to make from the perspective of the natural relatives that we all share, that are impacted by any decision we take. Every time we go to the supermarket, every time we vote, we are deciding for somebody else, from some other natural body. So I would like to see this sensibility adopted by the majority of people. And it's a systemic perspective, and everybody's talking about systemic coaching. It's not just about the systems or the organizations, it's about the whole world and how we take into consideration these needs, these ideas, and these desires for health and safety, not just for the human. So this is my wish, and I hope I can make it come true. Anything else as a closing or goodbye for who's listening? And I always give it first to you, because you are here also embodying your colleagues who are not here. And perhaps it would be nice also just to mention their names on your team who made this possible, so we can have them somehow in this conversation as well.
Thank you, Diana. And yeah, very much. Paul and Alex have been with me here in spirit. Definitely a resident of their energy with this space and place. And the Henley team as well, Daniel, Jade, and Ellie, for their knowledge. So internally grateful to them. And final words, final reflections. Oh, it's just really, really beautiful to be here with the swallows overhead and the red kites overhead, and just hearing the sounds of those birds in the manicured grounds of Henley Business School, which has little elements of wildness if you know where to look. So I've really valued having this conversation with you. I love doing the podcast. I love asking the questions, and it's been really, really special to be asked the questions. Having created a platform for others to speak, sometimes I forget to speak up, and that is something that I have worked on myself, is speaking up and speaking my truth. So I value the space and your curiosity and questions to enable me to do that. So thank you for that. And I hope this is the first of many conversations between the four of us and the rest who headed back yesterday. There is, again, coming back to it's the power of the and anyone who came and has an interest, reach out and find your counterpart within the tribe. And that's what I've not mentioned that I would like to bring in. I had a conversation with a few people, and the word that they felt when they were joining the day was that they felt that they'd found their tribe, and it was a relief. It was like a visceral, embodied, like, yeah, I belong here. This is my tribe, which is on a basic like safety and security. Like if we can healing, then people can really go on to flourish and thrive.
It feels quite special sitting here. Yeah. So when I did my degree a long time ago, I studied house science, and I did my dissertation on the lice that live in the feathers of house martins. And they're flying overhead, and you can hear them. And of course, they migrate to Athens. So you know the nourishment that they are getting from being this side of the world, Thames here, allows them to travel thousands of miles to spend the other part of the year in Africa. And so there's that kind of sense of connection through time. I would never have imagined as a graduate that I would be sitting here with people like you talking about stuff like this. I'm very grateful for that. And I'm thinking, in the next 10 years there's some magic and some mystery and unknowing about what is cool, but certainly I think it'll exceed our expectations. I have a lot of hope, and as Joanna Macy says, we need to make that hope an active hope, and I think it is for us to do. I think we will talk again. I think I think we'll keep talking. I think we'll keep building and keep moving. So, I'm gonna have.
Thank you. Final thoughts. A couple of things spring to mind. The phrase embodied a lot, but what I've seen from yesterday's template, I think you and Alex in the beginning started the heavy lift for the podcast, and then built a core team around you to kind of deliver yesterday, which was a massive lift, which is why it was a big boulder that got thrown in. But there's bigger boulders that more people need to find, and so you set the example, and others now need to join in. So analogy at the start line, I think you find the starting piston, and I think the race is underway, and I think we need runners to compete, but not with each other as a collective. Like it's more of a team game than an individual race, and it's not a sprint; it's definitely a marathon. Whether it's an ultra or not, ultra marathon, of course. But I think that's really exciting for me. I just constantly come back to that. Yesterday was a sense of anticipation, and today's a sense of excitement that now the race is underway. All that nervous waiting, like now we're off. But we need to keep that momentum. We know early on, like if you take flag and you fade, so now it's just to pay, have it and work together and deliver on that. And that's where we go.
Just a final closing is connections, a force for good. for the human communities, for the natural communities. Let's make it happen through the force of togetherness and team playing. So these can be superpowers that we can use, and you have enabled, how nature works for problem solving is creating the structures so that the information can flow in a system. And so this is what you have been doing over the past few years with the Coaching Outdoors podcast. You created this structure of interconnectedness among us all. So let's keep it alive and let's really use it as a force for good impact on our systems. This is my wish, and I would leave it to you to close this conversation.
Oh, the wrap up, the closure, and the beginning of something else. First up, I'd like to thank you for listening in, for taking the time in your day to listen to us reflect and process together. And what remains with you? If you came along, what was the experience like for you? Very much there's the feedback form of the mechanics of the event and how can we make it better, which is super valuable, and please do send that through. And then what are you taking away? What's your nugget? What is inspiring you? Where are you taking that? And then keep us updated, because your actions, those initiatives, speak up about them, and they in turn will inspire others. This is the ripple effect from the big boulder, the small boulder. How does that ripple out across the metaphorical pond ultimately to create change? So this is first up. And secondly, I feel incredibly lucky. I spent a lot of my teenage years not knowing what I wanted to do, what the future held, and I was always pretty jealous of everybody who had that vision of, I'm going to be a doctor, I'm going to be a lawyer, this is my road path in life. And I was just like, I'm going to join the army because I don't really want a proper job. And the golden thread comes through with hindsight. Like, I feel I'm exactly in the right space, in the right place, at the right time, surrounded by the right people, and this is what enables me to be me and to do my work. So that's a lot. So thank you.
Thank you for listening or watching, and keep in touch for the next steps on this Coaching Outdoors journey. Ciao.
So if you enjoyed what you've heard, like it, share across your network, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and LinkedIn community page, the Coaching Outdoor Podcast. Thanks so much in advance for your support.